November 20th, 2012. We are interviewing Duane Kraft. I am Sharon Boken, Parks and Open Space volunteer. Behind the camera is Cheryl Kippen doing the filming. So we have Mr. Duane Kraft here. We're doing this interview at his home. And I think
That's good.
okay.
Yeah, perfect.
So, where and when were you born?
I'm a native of Boulder. Boulder Sanitarium and Hospital.
What's your birthday, if you're willing to tell us?
Yeah, I just had one a couple days ago, or 3 or 4 days ago. November 16, 34.
Oh,
Those years are going by in a hurry.
definitely. Yep. So that was actually Boulder Memorial Sanitarium where you were born, correct?
Well, it's yes and no. Boulder Memorial, it was before that, Boulder Sanitarium and
Yeah.
Hospital, I think, before Memorial took over.
Yeah. Tell us about your family. Your parents,
Well, let's
brothers and
see.
sisters.
I have one sister. She's 4 years younger than I am. And she lives next door. We grew up about in North Boulder on 7th Avenue. And it was a little bit rural, had 4 acres, horses. There were pheasants around there. And my parents, Dad, I think, was born out at Lyons. My mother was that down Colorado Springs area. Her father was a miner in Cripple Creek, and he passed away young. And my dad was a decorator, painter, paper hanger. Mother took nurses training at Boulder Sanitarium, and she was an RN. And Dad was painting on the hospital when they got acquainted. So, and then a few years I came along, and after a while, you couldn't get a job in the construction field, and so Dad went prospecting and mining. And he and my uncle teamed together, worked in several of the mines up at Caribou, where Tom Hendricks is now, and up there on the Poor Man. They had one of the first compressors and leased air to different people that worked the mine there. They would just give a little block of ground a lease on it, so there were several different leasers on the property at one time, and Dad and my uncle had a compressor and furnished air to the different ones for drilling. And so I grew up having a little interest in the metals, the minerals, and so when I was big enough, why, Dad and I prospected together. And he went from painting, decorating, paper hanging to general construction and started building. And then after I got married, why, we formed a partnership, and we worked about half commercial and half residential. From Boulder, Denver, did Larimer Square, nursing homes in Grand Junction, and lots of buildings here in Boulder.
So how and when did you meet your wife?
My wife came from Texas. She's a Texas girl. And she came to Boulder to take nurses training at the hospital here. And we knew the dean. And so the dean had a boy that was in our, there's several of us fellows that's about the same age. And so we invited the dean and the girls to go camping up to 4th of July campground. And we met and first dated while she was in nurses training for 3.5 years, and then we got married. And I was in the Army for a year, and I came home on furlough and got married, and she came back, served in Walter Reed Army Medical Center for a time.
So how long have you been married?
54 years. Married March 23. I think that was 58.
And your wife's name is?
Janie
And what was her maiden name?
Bells, B-E-L-Z.
And how about your dad's name? And the uncle that he prospected with as well?
Samuel Altman, he was a painter. He kept the painting trade when Dad went into general, and so he did the painting end of it, and Dad did the general. So, it was his wife that is still living at 103 now. She lives with my sister next door here.
So when your dad did general construction, he was also then prospecting on the side, just...
Yeah, well, actually during the Depression, he put food on the table from mining. And so it was a little more prospecting. When I came along, it was mostly prospecting. But we did, people knew that we were prospectors and miners, and so when uranium came along, some people came and asked us to go check some things out, and we went up to Ward and checked out a prospect, and it turned out to be rare earths, not uranium, but it would kick a Geiger counter. But we put a round in, but it assayed out as rare earths, and so then there was 10 of us got together, and they said we would, let's just go looking for uranium now. So we went over to Golden to Schwarzwalder's property when it was only 50 feet deep. We got the geology of it. We had a geologist that worked with us, Leon Bird, and we combed the Front Range, and over there above Morrison at Idledale, we uncovered, or we found a place that looked interesting. We got a lease on it, and then we bought a core drill and hired a man to teach us how to core drill. And he could not core it because it was so soft. He worked with us a couple weeks there, and then he had to go back to his regular job, and we were on our own. And so our geologist said, let's go up on the hill and go for at depth. And so I core drilled, and I had a helper, and we got down there about 212 feet, as I recall. And we lost our water about 100 feet down. We were getting circulation, but no, only it was going in the hole and into a big hole, and so it wasn't circulating clear to surface, so we didn't know what kind of rock we were going through, except every 10 feet we would pull the core barrel and check. And we got down there 200 feet, and we pulled the core barrel, and we always had the Geiger counter there. We could run it over the car barrel, and we ran it over, and the needle went like that, and my heart went like that. So we opened it up, and we ended up, we had turned into the government for a loan to drive a tunnel into the area, and they turned us down the week before we found the ore by core drilling, and we took that in and showed it to them, and they just changed their mind 100%. They said it always was a good property, I thought, but so they gave us a loan, and we drove a 400-foot tunnel into it and mined it. That was the end of the uranium boom pretty much, and they didn't want to take our ore, but the government forced the carnotite mills over at Rifle to take our ore for 1 year, so even though they didn't want it. When that time period left, why, we had no place to ship our ore. We contacted Cotter Corporation. We don't want your ore, but we'll look at your property. So they looked at it, and they ended up buying the uranium property. So that was a little more than prospecting, you know. But and we've kept prospecting through the years, and then we bought some property up here in Wall Street, and we dealt with the county there and sold to the county. So
other than mining the uranium, you were also looking for gold and silver in your prospecting?
Correct.
Did you find more gold, more silver, or did you really have a preference?
Gold is always where the paycheck comes from, and the silver contributes, but we had base metals in Central City area, and Black Hawk, we had a property there, and it had silver, lead, copper, zinc, all the base metals mixed in with it, but the gold is still the paycheck. And then when the gambling came in over there, why, we sold that property to the gamblers. And but we've always had an interest in gold. You know.
So when you were doing the prospecting and the mining of the gold and silver, did you send your ore to a mill to be concentrated and then to a smelter, or?
We made some of the last shipments to Leadville before they closed the smelter down there. We were working a property on Gunnison, and the Gold Links property there, and we shipped to there, and they shut down, and so when we then worked over at Black Hawk, let's see, I think, I don't remember the smelter. We shipped the concentrates there because we had the mill at Central City, and we just shipped concentrates there. And then the later properties that we've worked, we found the ore, but we never did put it into production.
You just sold it to somebody else to develop it, or?
No. We had an option with a company too, but that didn't pan out, and so we kept prospecting on our own without going to a big company, and then we sold open space to the county so they could, and we kept the mineral rights. And then when the fire came, why, that burned us out, and so they wanted to buy the other people's property around that, and then they contacted us, and due to age and lack of capital, we decided it was time to sell to the, and so we made an agreement with the county and they bought the mineral rights. So the county has it, nobody will ever mine it, but there's gold in that mountain.
I think there's sufficient quantity up there to make some money.
There's a good quantity of gold in that mountain.
Describe a typical day of you going out prospecting.
Well, it varied. Uranium, we just covered the surface looking for an outcropping. And we did that a little bit in the gold where we didn't know where the vein, but we could find float on the mountainside. And when you're looking for float, why, if you find some down low, then you just keep going up the hill and you keep finding more float. And pretty soon, wow, we don't see any more float. And then when you dig down right there, you don't dig down very far and there's the vein. So we've done that. And then more extensive prospecting, why we got old properties that had some work in them, and we would go into them and do geology work and get a geologic target and then core drill for a geologic target. And if that proved good, then we would drive a tunnel and look at it, or just drift on the vein to find an ore chute. So that's more mining than, but it still is prospecting.
So you're talking about geology. Is this information that you've learned on your own, or have you taken some geology classes? And what's your education behind all your mining?
I have no degree behind my name. Most of it's practical. I grew up in the painting and construction trade, and so that came by hands-on experience from my father. No. And the mining was pretty much that also, and working with people. But Dad mined through the Depression, and I'd go in, and so during the years, I picked up on it, and so we hired some miners, and we'd work with them, and then we were on our own.
What was the background of some of the miners you hired? Were they a specific nationality, or they just had a lot of experience in mining in the area?
Well, I remember Neil Gapter, that he worked on a lot of these big tunnel projects like Eisenhower Tunnel or those things. So he had the big experience, and so he ran one shift at the uranium property, and Dad and I ran another shift. We ran two shifts in driving that 400-foot cross-cut tunnel in to get in there in a reasonable good time. But you can go 5-6 feet a day without any trouble, a couple people. And so, and an outside man to go with it. So, but he's one that I recall right offhand. And the others of us, we trained some of our carpenters that worked with us, and they didn't mind working in the mine. And then my uncle Sam, he was a miner, and he had experience. So he and Dad had the experience, and they taught me. And then we would, if we got into a formation that needed a little attention, we'd call and ask some powder people, how's the best way to drill this, and load it and shoot it to pull the round. So
And never blew anybody up.
no, we were fortunate that we, through construction and mining, still have all my fingers, and I learned that, hey, if you hit it with a hammer or something, or with the drilling by hand steel, that hurts, and I wasn't aggressive enough to to go all out like some of the people were that I worked with, you know. So that's, I guess that's about it on.
So what tasks did you do? Obviously, you drilled holes for the explosives. Did you muck and everything else while you were doing it, or?
We used to hand pick and shoveled off of a tin, and then we had mucking machines when we'd drive a big, a long tunnel. Why we was air powered mucking machines, and you could fill a ton car with one of those in a minute, pretty easy. And so you could drill 6 feet, and load and shoot, and then the next day you'd come in and you'd muck it out, and then drill and shoot in one day, and then you'd leave it so it could air out overnight.
So what did you enjoy the most? Which of the jobs did you enjoy the most?
Well, I wasn't a specialist. Jack of all trades, master of none, I guess. But I didn't mind hard work. So whatever the job required, we did it. So whether it was picking or mucking or drilling or shooting or tramming, carpentry work, we did it from ground up. Concrete work, took it from ground up, and rough carpentry, finished carpentry, cabinets, whatever, and painting,
So, what do you consider to be the most dangerous, and have you seen changes in the safety of it from when you started?
Oh, the regulations changed. We never used to go to mine refreshers and training, and then MSHA got involved after a few accidents, and so we had to have our certification through MSHA, and we were equipped so we could train our miners to. And then the last few years we went to training over at the Edgar mine at Idaho Springs and had our refresher trainings there.
So what kind of changes have you seen in the equipment to help you mine easier and better and safer?
Well, you always bar down, and you just have safety in mind if you want to live. And so you bar down, and some of the bars, they have some longer ones with light handles that they put sharp points on that to put you out a little further away from the rock that you were barring down. So that has varied a little bit. It's all basic principles of barring down, making it safe before you get working. And then it went from hand drilling to machine drilling to track-mounted drills where you went from rail to rubber-tired units, and but you have to use common sense wherever you're at to be safe. I mean, the equipment, that might make it more dangerous if you're not trained and not careful, because that equipment is powerful and it can cause accidents if you're not careful.
Changes in the type of explosives that you've used over the years, or are they all pretty much still the same?
Lots of similarity, but different mines, different things. If there's water problems, they've got it now, so you can put it in bags where water doesn't bother it, you know. The powder sticks, lots of them are similar, but there's always some upgrades. And then they went to Prowl, where you would just have your primer and a stick of powder, and then load the other with Prowl, blow it in, and that's fertilizer and diesel fuel mixture where you blow it in that explodes if you have a dynamite to set it off.
So initially, when you first started, when your dad first started mining, then when you first started in mining, how was the ore taken to the mill or the smelter? Was it horse and wagon, or?
Well, the old railroad used to go right up through the Switzerland Trail there on up to Ward, you know, and they used to take things and truck it to Canyon City down there, to the smelter down there, either by rail or truck, various ways there. And Dad had his own mill up at Caribou, and they would mine a little bit, then they'd run the mill for a little bit. They had a little stamp mill, and then they'd clean up and they'd take the free gold. They had some free gold there, and they'd take that right down to the mint and sell it right to the mint.
Did they do any other kind of concentrating with like flotation tanks or spirals, or?
We had a flotation mill in Central City, and we did that for the basic. We just had a product that had lead, silver, gold, zinc, copper, and all base metals in it. Then they shipped that to the smelter.
So, where was your property up Wall Street in relation to the assay office?
Well, we surrounded the assay office through the years, and then it was on up the road half a mile or so, where the actual tunnel crossed the road at the Wood Mountain property. And then going up the road there by the assay office, why we had about 29 claims up there that crisscrossed, that was accessible through the Wood Mountain Tunnel and the Nancy Tunnel.
So how many claims approximately did you have up in that area?
Well, we had, I think, 29, if my memory serves me correct, and then we had some leased besides that. Oh, I don't know. Half a dozen or more.
So obviously you knew the Baileys then.
Right, we had some nice visits. She would always have a goodie when you'd stop in to visit, and so we knew Jim and Dave both. When we had our donkeys there at the Wood Mountain, why they sometimes would get out of the fence and they'd go down the road, and Dee and Jim would catch them and hold them for us.
Did you ever do any joint mining ventures with the Baileys? Or?
No. We did have, after they mined previous to our involvement up there, they mined some of the same properties that we did. But, but no partnerships or anything.
Do you know some of the other miners that lived up Wall Street area?
Not very many of them. Most of them were gone at that time. Dee would have picnics once a year up there, and she'd bring in a lot of the old timers, and we would met a few of them, but very brief. We didn't know them well.
So what kind of wages would you pay the miners that came in to help you with your mining jobs?
Oh, that varied. We probably started out I would have to look back. Probably $4 an hour. And as the years went by, I hired a man, miner from Ward, Jim Bennett, for $12 an hour. And we thought that was fair. And then things expanded, and he could make $30 or $40 an hour. And I said, I can't hold you back. And so he went and made that kind of money. And then those jobs, the companies went belly up for some reason or another, and but a good miner is pretty valuable nowadays with metal prices where they are, and I don't really know right now what the current rate is, but I know it's that range from 4 to 60, I imagine.
So what do you think caused the mining to kind of stop? Was it the price of metals going down, a lack of smelters and mills in the area, lack of people wanting to go into mining?
Well, it's probably all of the above, but the smelters, the milling facilities, with costs going up, and in this area, most of the mines are narrow veins, and it's more expensive to mine a narrow high-grade vein than it is a big low-grade vein, and so the big dollars are going for the big, just like down at Canyon now, everything's, big operations, open pit.
So were most of the claims that you had up in the Wall Street area ones that you found, or did you purchase some of them?
No, these were old claims that other people had worked, and we continued to prospect them.
Okay, we'll get away from the mining a little bit here. So, as a child, what did you like? What was your favorite chore as a child?
Well, all work and no play makes Duane a dull boy. So I like to play sports, and I enjoyed them all.
So where did you go to school in Boulder?
I went to Boulder Junior Academy. Started out at 9th in Portland, And actually I went over to Washington for kindergarten, I guess. We lived on 7th Avenue and we'd walk down 9th Street to 9th in Portland, and that's where I went 10 grades there. And then I went to Camping Academy up at Berthoud, Loveland area, and graduated from high school there, and went 1 year college at Union College, Lincoln, Nebraska, and 1 year to CU, and I decided I'd work for a living, and I've been doing that ever since.
So when did you officially retire? Or have you?
It doesn't seem like I have. I guess when last year, about this time, I guess, when I sold the mine to the county, the last portion of the mine to the county, that's when I said through, and so I guess maybe you would say that. I did check out one other property though, but it was not available. So the right conditions, why that yellow stuff has a way of luring you.
So what was your least favorite chore that you had to do as a child?
Oh. I don't remember, you know. I guess we did what we were asked to do and had to do, and that, and maybe as I grew up and started working with my father, and then we went into business together. We worked together for 40 years, 50 years, or longer, because he worked into his 80s, or almost 90, I guess, before he shut down. And so, you know, that's unusual for parents and kids to get along that well, and so we worked hard and we played hard.
So you raised a lot of your own food?
We
on
had
your
gardens.
4 acres?
We had gardens, and mother had gardens there, and you know, not a lot of food, but some.
Any animals, any livestock?
We had horses. My grandparents had a cow or so, and when they was on vacation, why, I'd help them milk or something, but we didn't have, you know, just the pets and things like that. Besides the horses, is mostly what we had. We did a little hunting.
Hunting for what, deer?
Deer, elk, antelope, bighorns, elk, you know, and so that. When I got married, my wife was a vegetarian, but she would still cook a little meat for me. But then as years went on, and I got some game that was diseased, that when I'd clean it out, I said, I don't need to eat that anymore. And so I became a vegetarian also. And so that's, I guess that takes you, maybe I got through that too fast, I don't know.
So tell me about your friends and kind of games that you liked to play when you were a child.
Oof. Oh, Parcheesi. I'd play with my grandma Parcheesi. She liked to play Parcheesi, and but Monopoly, Sorry, just table games, I guess. You know, marbles.
And what kind of sports? You said you like
Sports, softball, baseball, played Legion ball. Dad sponsored softball down at, what was that, down at 9th and Walnut. There where they used to have fields down there. And so we played softball on that. And like I say, Legion ball, played and traveled around. Started playing for Reiners in the little leagues, and then on up to Legion ball. But then, let's see, I never did much golfing, but basketball, badminton. When I went to the service, I had to fill out a form, and on that it had all the sports listed, and I put down every one of them a little bit. Well, I didn't know, but after basic training and I went to Walter Reed, why, I said, do you have any openings in the athletic office? And that sheet came up before them, and they looked at that, well, maybe we do. You can go for an interview. And so I went for an interview, and I was the gym janitor at Walter Reed and helped set up tournaments and run the program there, and played handball, basketball, volleyball, badminton, you know, all the different sports there, as well as help set up for the post teams and things.
So which branch of the services were you in, and about what time frame were you in the service?
I was in 55 to 57. They had to draft me. And so I was drafted. I went through, I was a non-combatant, so I went down through Fort Sam Houston and took medical training there. And then I went to Walter Reed and thought maybe I'd work on the ward or something like that. But I figured if you ask, you might receive, you know. I believe that principle in the Bible there. And so I asked for the athletic job, and I got it, and I was at home.
So did you meet any famous people while you were at Walter Reed?
Oh, yes, but the memory isn't there to remember all the names. But many people were treated there that had many stars. But I don't remember all the names. I think Eisenhower was there when I was there, possibly. I'm not positive about that, but it could have been that he was there. Politics wasn't my thing, and so I don't remember all of them.
Nobody that sticks out in your mind.
Right.
So did you have any really memorable school experiences, like good or bad?
No, I just no, I wasn't. I wasn't. What would you say? School wasn't my liking. I didn't mind math. I liked math, and I could do it, but some of the other classes I didn't like, and so that's the reason after I got through high school and took a couple years of just basics of why I didn't want a desk job. I said I'm going to work, and so I went into the trades, and you know, so that's the reason we could take it from ground up. You know, we did that, and so whether it was concrete work, flat work, form and pour, or carpentry work, framing, finish carpentry or whatever. We could do all of it, and I enjoyed the various trades. We did everything but the electrical, plumbing, and heating, if we needed to. So
what you didn't like in school was English or science
Oh.
or?
Psychology and English, that was okay, but psychology and history didn't fit too well with me. I liked math, but I didn't, I was not the teacher kind, on that, so I guess I chose the trades.
So up on your property up in the Wall Street area, is that where you did some of your hunting?
No, most of the hunting was over in the White River country, South Fork of the White River, and that we had the horses and we'd pack in for a couple weeks and set up camp and enjoy the out of doors.
So on the properties the mines that you owned, have you seen specific kind of wildlife like bear, deer and elk?
I saw elk and deer. The evidence of bear, mountain lions, they'd say there's a mountain lion on the porch there in Wall Street here, but I never did see the mountain lion. I saw one fall where it looked like the bear hibernated in a hole, and I didn't pursue it. But I never did see him up there. But just 3 weeks ago, right through our backyard, one walked. And the only one I saw in 38 years here. But that was a treat.
What time of day did you see him
In
walking?
the evening,
In the evening?
just about dusk.
Do you have apple trees or something like that?
Not here.
then?
No, they follow the stream here, though. The deer, I've seen bobcats. Got a picture of a bobcat right between our houses here, and I saw him go right through our backyard one day. And but that's the only bear. But deer, quite often, and coyotes, and then the different birds. Lots of different birds.
So if you've lived here 38 years and you lived in North Boulder growing up, where else have you lived in between?
Lived in Nederland, well, actually outside of Nederland, out on Merle Reynolds Ranch there, and the Magnolia Road, 2 miles east from the peak to peak. There, he had a ranch there, and we lived there about 11 plus years. And so that was very nice, seeing all the wildlife. I did see bear up there.
Now, when you lived up there, were you still doing construction, or was that strictly a mining period?
No, that was both. I worked at Larimer Square during that time, and I worked in the mine over at Blackhawk at that time, during that period of time.
So you had quite a travel time to get to those places.
Right. Yeah, I had well, the traffic wasn't as bad as it is now, but it'd take you an hour, to get to Larimer Square. And so.
What kind of vehicle?
Pickups. Yeah, most generally pickups. Yeah.
So what did you do down at Larimer Square? What kind of construction?
We were the general contractors, and we underpinned the Court of the Bull and the Bear, and the basements in the old structures were not high enough for current codes, and so we underpinned the foundations and did it all there, from demolition to restore it. The architect would go out to different historic places and pick up antiques that they wanted put in the walls in certain places, and we'd install them. And we just took it from ground up. We put in a whole new heating system that heated the whole block, and we'd cut through holes and prepare things for the heating people, and we just oversaw the whole project.
So, did you ever have your Geiger counter down in downtown Denver?
No, but did a little panning in the gravels down there. But
Did you ever find anything in your panning?
nothing significant. We weren't quite as, didn't have the same setup that they had here, out here, that Al McGowan had for catching all the gold out of Boulder Creek here.
So I have to ask you, what got you into uranium mining? That's a little bit different than most people would go for.
Well, like I said, we had some friends that knew that we were prospectors and miners for gold and silver, and so they had the Geiger counters and had found the rare earths up at, and they invited us to do that. Well, when that didn't pan out, they said, "We've got a group of us together here now, let's just go looking." And so that's what we did. And that's where we learned how to core drill. We hired Archie Swartz, that was a core driller, and he taught us how to core drill. And after he taught us, why, we were on our own. And so then we were successful and found the ore, and we mined it, and then we sold it when we got squeezed out because of not having the capital. And so that put us into uranium business for a short while.
So no concerns about the radiation that you were getting off of
Uh,
the uranium?
well, you always have that, you got to ventilate. Put in enough air, why, no problem. But you take your precautions, and there's no problem. There's no problem driving down the highway if you take your precautions, but if you don't, why, you're in the troubles.
So what kind of extra precautions would you take?
What? Well, I guess observe the rules and regulations. That's there. Once in a while you get heavy on the foot, and that isn't good. You pay for it. And so, but it's best to observe the rules. And so just try to drive for the other person too.
We have about 7 minutes left on this battery and this tape. Is there more that we want to talk about? What do we want to keep on going for a while? What do you guys think?
I think you know about it as much as I know.
I think we've generally covered
Yeah, I thought the
most of the questions we had lined out. Yeah.
Well, you know, one thing I want to do, if I can get this tripod to do it, is I want to have a look at the wood bucket you have there and have you talk a little bit about that. And I know you've got a bighorn sheep on that wall, and I want to hear if you've got a story behind that. So I'm going to move the camera a little bit. We're going to see what I can get in here. And let's...
Are you still on tape?
I am still. Oh, I can get it. Okay. And I see you've got a wood burning stove as well, so.
Right. That's a harsh stone, good on bad red days too. So, and I keep a fire going, as you can feel it. It's
Yes.
warm, and I used a lot of wood. And but this is a ore bucket that was down in the Wood Mountain mine. We cleaned out a winds there, and it was down off to the side of the winds, and a little stope there about 30 feet down the winds, about 900 feet in the Wood Mountain tunnel. And so I thought it would be a good keepsake. This is another tool of mining, and this came from my grandpa that mined in the Cripple Creek area, an old pick there. Keepsake of ours.
Okay, just.
I enjoyed hunting from when I could first get a deer on, and then when they opened up to hunt bighorn sheep in Colorado, why Dad and I turned in for our permits in the Glenwood Springs area. And so we hunted, we learned about sheep when we hunted the Glenwood Springs area. I had a new pair of Red Wing boots. I wore the soles out in 10 days, hiking Glenwood Canyon. I had to have them resoled. We saw sheep almost every day, but we didn't know that the ewes were not, the rams were not close to the ewes during hunting season. We'd see ewes and small rams, but never could find the big ones. Well, we learned at the end of the season that they didn't stay there. So the next year we turned in for the Empire area between the triangle between Loveland and Berthoud Passes there. And we went there, and the first day out we saw a big herd of ewes. We went to a total different area the next day, and we saw some rams. So far you could just see with the binoculars. And we worked up that evening to where we got to look down a steep hill, and we just saw their heads. And Dad and I stood there and argued which one to shoot first. And they took off, and we shot on the run but missed them. The next day we picked up the tracks and went right down almost to the town of Empire. And we got into a whole herd of rams. And I got this one. Dad didn't see one. I saw another one. And they got away, and so Dad said, well, I'll go get the Jeep while I clean this one out. And when he went back to get the Jeep, he got into the bunch again, and he got his. So we both got our sheep. But after learning the trades, so that was, they broom them off when it gets in their eyesight. So they don't come right out to a point. You can see how it brooms. And so they're an interesting animal. The meat was very tasty, but if you get any of the fat with it, it is, you don't want any of it. So that was the sheep.
Right.
We got our sheep. It took 2 seasons learning, but we did it.
All right, Duane, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us about your life in Boulder County and your mining years and your hunting and sportsmanship and all of that?
No, I enjoyed when we could go out and hunt pheasants and see pheasants, and now you don't see pheasants anymore, you know, and I enjoyed it when there were not so many people. Boulder has been good. I wasn't planning on moving, but health issues has caused us to make a change, and so we're making a change. But I love Boulder. I didn't go along with all the things, the regulations and things that it's sad to see that, but I just love the area. I love the Indian Peaks wilderness, all the trails, Rocky Mountain National Park. I love Colorado, and I've enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I'm glad that it's there's still some good things in Boulder.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you today, Duane. We have a little less than a minute left. Thank you very much. This was really interesting.
You're welcome.